Hate them or like them, oligarchic billionaires are increasingly investing in the public arena. For good or bad, their influence over our lives is becoming more apparent, especially after the Corona era, when billionaires perceive the pandemic as an opportunity to increase their wealth and status as non-state actors. Besides Bill Gates and his controversial investments in medicine, media outlets, farms, and food companies, there is another figure whose name gained popularity in the past 3 decades, and that is the Hungarian-American billionaire George Soros, the godfather of open society initiatives and spreader of neoliberalism among the people around the world. There are many conspiracy theories about Soros, but the undeniable fact is that he invests hundreds of millions in ex-Soviet Union countries, the Middle East and Africa, Far East Asia, and in regions where the US wants to impose its hegemony. One of the countries that Soros sent millions to is Ukraine, where Soros' Open Society has contributed around $250 million in grants to Ukraine to support democratic practices, human rights, and independent journalism.
We have a foundation in Ukraine, and it happens to be one of our best foundations, leading civil society. I also want to mention that there is one person who was very deeply involved in Ukraine, and that's Biden. He had a lot more patience than I had in trying to convert Poroshenko into a democratic leader.
Тому що у нас робота буде, у них немає. У нас пенсії будуть, у них немає. У нас піклування під дітей, під людей, під пенсіонерів, під дітей буде, у них немає. У нас діти підуть до школи, до дитячих садків, у них вони будуть сидіти в підвалах, бо вони нічого не вміють робити. І так, і саме так ми виграємо цю війну.
After watching these videos, I would like to ask who elected George Soros and other billionaires to control and change the destinies of peoples and countries around the world.
Since the last Davos meeting, the course of history has changed dramatically. Russia invaded Ukraine. That has shaken Europe to its core. The European Union had been established to prevent such a thing from happening. Even when the fighting stops, as it eventually must, the situation will never revert to what it was before. The invasion may have been the beginning of the Third World War, and our civilization may not survive it. Fighting pandemics and climate change, avoiding nuclear war, maintaining global institutions, have had to take a backseat to that struggle. That's why I say our civilization may not survive. After the 9/11 attacks in 2001, the tide began to turn against open societies. Repressive regimes are now in the ascendant, and open societies are under siege. Today, China and Russia present the greatest threat to open society. Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping met on February 4th at the opening ceremony of the Beijing Winter Olympics. They issued a long statement announcing that their cooperation between them has no limit. Putin informed Xi of a special military operation in Ukraine, but it's unclear whether he told Xi that he had a full-scale attack on Ukraine in mind. US and UK military experts certainly told their Chinese counterparts what was in score. Nevertheless, she approved and asked Putin to wait until the conclusion of the Winter Olympics. In the meantime, Putin's so-called special military operation didn't unfold according to plan. He expected his army would be welcomed by the Russian-speaking population of Ukraine as liberators. His soldiers carried with them their dress uniforms for a victory parade, but that's not what happened. Ukraine put up unexpectedly strong resistance and inflicted severe damage on the invading Russian army. The army was badly equipped and badly led, and the soldiers became demoralized. The United States and the European Union rallied to Ukraine's support and supplied it with armaments. With their help, Ukraine was able to defeat the much larger Russian army in the battle for Kiev. Putin couldn't afford to accept defeat and changed his plans accordingly. He put General Vladimir Shamarov, well known for his cruelty in the siege of Grozny, in charge and ordered him to produce some success by May 9th, when Victory Parade has to be celebrated. But Putin has very little to celebrate. Shamanov concentrated his efforts on the port city of Mariupol, which used to have 400,000 inhabitants. He reduced it to rubble, as he had done to Grozny. But the Ukrainian defenders held out for 82 days, and the siege cost the lives of thousands of civilians. Moreover, the hasty withdrawal from Kiev revealed the heinous atrocities that Putin's army had committed on the civilian population in a suburb of Kiev, Bucha. They are well documented, and they have outraged those who saw the pictures on television. That didn't include the people of Russia, who had been kept in the dark about Putin's special military operation. The invasion of Ukraine has now entered a new phase, which is much more challenging for the Ukrainian army. They must fight on open terrain, where the numerical superiority of the Russian army is more difficult to overcome. The Ukrainians are doing their best, counterattacking and penetrating Russian territory. That has had the additional benefit of bringing home to the Russian population what was really going on. The US has also done its best to reduce the financial gap between Russia and Ukraine by getting Congress to allocate an unprecedented $40 billion in military and financial aid to Ukraine. I can't predict the outcome, but Ukraine certainly has a winning chance. While the war rages, the fight against climate change has to take second place. Yet, the experts tell us that we have already fallen far behind, and climate change is on the verge of becoming irreversible. That could be the end of our civilization. I find that prospect particularly frightening. Most of us expect accept that the idea that we must eventually die, but we take it for granted that our civilization will survive. Therefore, we must mobilize all our resources to bring the war to an early end. The best and perhaps only way to preserve our civilization is to defeat Putin as soon as possible. That's the bottom line. Thank you.
I've been your host, George Almacen of Syriana Analysis. If you like my reporting, please subscribe and hit the like button, as it really helps me with the algorithm of YouTube. And if you want to support my work, please become a patron. Link in the description below, and see you next time.